Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod with Hebatullah Issa. She's a disability content strategist, founder at Disability Content Consulting. We're going to talk about disability, accessibility, inclusion, and diversity in content today. This pod is presented to you by podpar.com. That's my podcasting agency. If you need help with that, go to podpar.com. Heba, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and about disability content consulting.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for having me. So I've been in media and communications for about 15 years now. I started disability content consulting about 2 years ago. And we are a speakers bureau that leads into a consulting firm. So we focus on connecting companies with disabled speakers to speak about their lived experiences. And those topics hopefully will lead the companies that we speak to come and focus on our services. Some of those services might be creating content with their company. It might be disability consulting. It might be HR consulting. It can range from a different variety of services depending on the company.
How did you get into this in the first place?
That's interesting because I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago. I had gotten a job at a accessible or adaptive fashion company rather during COVID. And I was heading up the content portion of their website. And I was working with a lot of disabled content creators, and we were creating a lot of really great content. And I was bringing on a lot of content creators who didn't have any formal work experience, even though they were incredibly talented. And I realized that after they had worked with us for a while, they had gone on to get better jobs than they had with us, honestly, which was a great and fulfilling, just experience to have. And then unfortunately, that company had filed for a bankruptcy. So I didn't really want to let go of that, experience and that opportunity to be able to create space for people and create those opportunities to see people succeed and fulfill other job obligations. And so I decided to start my own consulting firm, Disability Content Consulting, bring over all those content creators and be able to give them those job experiences so they can go on to hopefully get better jobs than they had before.
Right, and the disability part of it, it's not something that I often talk about or even picture, like I have my full abilities cognitively, I have my eyes, I have like my body to bring me to this table and sit on this chair. So I don't often think or speak about this topic. How did you first get into touch with that part of disabilities and how content could potentially limit or be limited to some folks and not some others?
Yeah, so I'm disabled. I didn't realize I was disabled until I was officially diagnosed when I was maybe 25 or 26. So I have ADHD, dyspraxia, dysgraphia, a few other disabilities. I actually call it like an alphabet soup. They all have a bunch of different, abbreviations. And I had realized that I had been impacted throughout my entire educational experiences with these disabilities. And I remember just when I was diagnosed, one of the people who had tested me had asked me, like, how did you get this far in your education? I have 2 masters. And they said, how did you get this far? And I was like, Honestly, I don't know. Because a lot of the reading materials were just inaccessible to me. I have Erlen syndrome. For those that don't know what Erlen syndrome is, it's a scotopic sensitivity, which means that black font on a white background is really difficult for me to read. Um, and I didn't know why I had a difficult time reading text throughout my entire life. Um, so, it was a wonder, I guess, to a lot of, disability, I guess, psychologists, I forget what they're called, honestly, I'm just kind of blanking on that word, who had diagnosed me, how I'd been able to, get that far in my educational experience. So when I had been able to work at that adaptive fashion company, I had really learned to find different ways of creating content and creating accessible ways to work with different content creators. And one of the things that I like to tell the clients that we work with, because a lot of times they say, like, what is different about your editing style? And I said, what's different about our editing style is that we create a plan with all of our content creators. So all of our plans, we have an accessibility plan with each of our content creators. And so we get to learn how they work personally. And we get to know what works best for them. So, some people like one-on-one feedback. Some people, when they are going through their content, going through their feedback, they need to have someone just like you and me sitting here right here and go through it together. Other people need a video and need to be, talked through it. Other people need, a written document of all the changes that need to be made. Other people need their feedback written in specific fonts, specific colors. So we have lots of different accessibility plans for each of our content creators. And all of that takes a genuine and authentic amount of time to get to know each of our people.
Right. And what are you doing nowadays precisely, working with company to help them being more inclusive via their websites and their content, or how does that happen?
Yeah, so recently we partnered with a company called Witty Works. They are a an app or an extension that is about inclusive language, and it basically like scans documents to help people write more inclusively. And so what we did is we partnered with them to create part of their English language disability dictionary, and to make their dictionary more inclusive. And so that was one thing that we had done recently. We write articles for companies to educate them on different types of inclusive language. And we've been doing a lot of speaking engagements about lived experiences. Something that we are working on right now is hiring workshops. Those hiring workshops are ways for some of our disabled content creators to practice their interviewing skills. So we partner them with different clients, and we have different HR departments practice their interviewing skills as well. And we audit their interviews for accessibility, essentially, and for potential unconscious bias. And that's a great way for, the HR to, find, it's a like a non-pressure situation, I guess you would say, for them to, see where there are places for unconscious bias to be become more inclusive. And then for our content creators to practice their interview skills.
Right. And let's say I'm building a website, like how can I build an inclusive website? How does that work? Is it the colors? Is it the fonts? Is it the accessibility of the website? How can I do that?
Yeah, so there are a lot of different guidelines. So there are a lot of different guidelines, but it can be from the colors. For example, bright colors like orange or red font can be, not the most accessible. But there are WCAG guidelines that we try and follow. We had recently decided to make the bold decision to kind of do away with our website, which it was a very, very bold decision because we had a website that wasn't the most accessible. And we had worked with several website developers who had claimed to be, ADA compliant and to know how to create an accessible website. And we had many different standards that we wanted them to follow. But what we learned is that a lot of people don't really know how to create those websites, and that specialty is very special, and it's very niche. And so a lot of times what we'll see now is a lot of websites will have those overlays, those kind of like pop-ups that will come up that will change the website to have different features that will change the font and change the color and change backgrounds. And those work for a lot of people. However, they can interfere with screen readers. That's what we've learned from a lot of our research. And that's something that we wanted to avoid because we wanted to have our accessibility embedded in the code. And that was something that was really important to us. And so we decided that we want to focus more on our social media presence because a lot of the social media websites have their accessibility embedded into the code already. And so that's kind of something that we want to focus on, and we encourage a lot of websites to focus on, is to have their accessibility embedded into the code and not really rely on those overlays because they can interfere with the screen readers.
Right. What are your top goals for this year? What do you want to accomplish?
So we've been in business for 2 years, and I forget what the statistics are for a small business to survive the first year or two. And so we're very lucky to have gotten this far, and it's been a really big learning experience. And we're in this really exciting time in which we are pretty much changing our entire strategy. So like I said, we are, doing away with the website. We're focusing solely on social media. We are changing our strategy from focusing on brand content, and we want to focus more on our speaking engagements. We have found that when we interact with companies on a speaking engagement level, they are much more likely to engage with our services. So our really big goal is to work a lot more on our speaking engagements. So we want to focus more on our YouTube, on on our like social media that you know, accentuates our you know, lived experience, speaking potentials, and be able to get those speaking engagements up. So that way we can have, you know, more companies engage with our services in that regard.
Got it. And where can people find out more about you, Heba?
So we are at LinkedIn. So that would be disability content consulting at LinkedIn.